So let me get started. Today I want to talk about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. It's probably one of the most important concepts in marketing. It's a concept that could be a class in itself because it's so important. So I'm going to try to sparkle some ideas that will inspire you in preparing you for Saturday, in thinking in terms of opportunities. So before talking about segmentation, targeting, and positioning, which is referred as STP, I will show you what a simple document that I've created that is probably over simple, but is ultra necessary because I want to make sure everyone does not make the mistake. I've been teaching this class for more than 20 years, and I know students make the mistake even though I repeat it many times. So I've created these 3-4 slides, which I will send you separately because I really want to mark the momentum of thinking in terms of not making a mistake. So an opportunity is not what you are going to do. So on Saturday, when you come and you tell us about, or you tell me, because this is going to be private groups, you tell me what you think the opportunities are. Do not tell me what Andre James should be doing. What Andre James should be doing, these are tactics or strategies. What Andre James change in the environment is happening that he should take advantage of. These are opportunities. So opportunities are facts, changes in the environment that you can take advantage of. Opportunities are not what you are going to do. 99% of the people make the mistake of telling me what they're going to do and state these as the opportunities. What you're going to do, they are just ideas. So here's a simple sample. Opportunities are not what you're going to do. So it would be wrong to say the opportunity is to sell more organic chicken. If you say that, you're not saying what's the opportunity, you're saying what you're going to do. We're going to sell more organic chicken. Maybe you're not selling any, maybe you're not selling enough. Now you decided to sell more organic chicken. So therefore, this is an idea, this is an activity, this is something you're planning to do. Versus, if you're stating a fact or some change in the environment, you will simply say, the opportunity is that people want more organic chicken. So facts are just straight factors that you just mentioned. Saying that the opportunity is that people want more organic chicken is incomplete because you would have to say, according to what source? You know, so you don't want to state an opportunity which is sort of pulled out of a hat. Otherwise, it looks like you're making up opportunities, and it's important for us talking to Andre James, but it's critical for the next class because the next class you will pretend to be selling your ID to an investor, and the investor will mostly judge the value of your ID based on the opportunity that you have identified. So this class is difficult because you have to understand what's an opportunity and you have to create one. In the next class, and I'm the witness of this, in a matter of a few hours, everybody has discovered and selected opportunities that they've created themselves. So in this class, because it's the main focus is to be able to do opportunities, and eventually everyone gets it. In the next class, it doesn't take very long to everyone to do it because they understood what it is. And that's kind of a big achievement for everyone to understand this concept, because then they start thinking like business people. So here's some examples of different brands that picked up where we look at the ideas and the opportunities. And I wanted to just go through this so that way you see what we're talking about. It is easier, much easier, to think in terms of ideas than it is to think in terms of opportunities. Because we are all creative people, we all have some kind of ideas, we all can sort of estimate and guess what we think we should be doing, but a guess is worth nothing unless it has support. So the support is the opportunity. So CSUN, what is the idea? The idea is to offer education in the San Fernando Valley through a higher level university program. The opportunity is the fact that the San Fernando Valley has 3.7 million people, and people are actually interested in learning, because there could be lots of people and they don't want to learn, but it's a lot of people and they're interested in learning. And there's also people that have children, so people are having children, so therefore there's a need for a university. In a place where there's no children, maybe there's less need because there's less young people, and people are less interested to go to get an education. So the opportunity is large population, people wanting to get education. So I'm not saying the opportunity is to have a bigger university in the San Fernando Valley, one university in San Fernando Valley, multiple universities in the San Fernando Valley. That's the idea. So it's very important not to confuse the two. Now, what about Martha Stewart? Something totally different. Martha Stewart is a lady that started by offering cooking recipe. She actually didn't know much about cooking. She knew just a little bit more than everyone, a lot of people. So she knew more than 51% of the people how to cook. So she was not a cook. She was not a professional cook. She started writing books, and she sold these books, and she was very successful because of the opportunity. The opportunities, there was a large number of women that really care to learn about cooking because they felt this was their role back, this was in the 60s. And therefore they wanted to improve themselves, and they looked for a woman that was like them, that didn't pretend to be a professional chef, that was just a common housewife that could lead another group of housewives. So they felt that she was the right person. So the idea is write a cooking book. The opportunity is a lot of housewife looking for a housewife leader on telling them how to cook. Next one, Callaway Golf. Callaway originally is a company that makes wine. So they made wine, they were successful, and eventually they became rich. And as you became rich, you start playing golf. So they start playing golf, the CEO of Callaway, Mr. Callaway, and he realized that he didn't play golf very well. And the reason he didn't play golf very well is because the golf clubs were hard to play. They had small faces and it was hard to hit the ball. The idea is to make a golf club with a very big face. So the bigger the face, the easier it is to hit the ball. That's the idea. The opportunities, there were a lot of people that also realized that most of the golf clubs were becoming harder and harder to hit because they're mostly designed for the experts. Yet, most of the people buying golf clubs are the people that you can do business with, are the people that don't want to become an expert. They just want to enjoy the game, and anything they can get that makes their game play easier, they want it. So Mr. Callaway showed up with his huge golf club where people thought it was a baseball bat and he couldn't miss the golf ball. And eventually he created what is very famous now, the Big Bertha and the big golf clubs, and everything else is a legend. And that's why this company was successful. They met the opportunity with an idea that was solving a problem from a specific target. So that's what business is about. Specific targets are problems. These problems becomes an opportunity, and then the idea is to as perfectly as possible, meet the target with your solution. Tom's, the idea is to sell a shoe, and every shoe that you sell, you give one to someone else, because then people will feel good about helping someone else. The opportunity is a lot of people want to help people by participating in some non-profit charity type of things. So obviously, you can't just state the opportunity like this. You also have to say the source. So in your situation, you will have to come up with a source and all that. I'm not saying the source, but I could make it up, according to research in the Journal of Social Psychology from 2021. People care for others and look for solutions in order to show a sense of community and charity. And that becomes the source. And then terms go after this specific group of people. Again, that's why segmentation, targeting, and positioning is so important, is because you cannot imagine or try or dream. I mean, you can dream, but it does not happen very often. But you actually create a product that is universally loved. Oftentimes, products are can be extremely successful with a very specific group of products. There are some products that are very successful with a large group of people. Apple, iPhone, Mercedes-Benz, and all this. These are products that universally work. I mean, there's music artists that are much more universal than some others. And so this is true. But for the most part, you have to think that there's a specific target that you're trying to satisfy, and it's the opportunity of that specific target that you're trying to satisfy. With all the examples I've been giving you now, maybe you start making sense when I said that the best opportunity comes from the consumers. If you look at the environment, there is the micro environment and the macro environment. You actually got tested just a few minutes ago on that, so it's probably fresh in your mind. In the micro environment, the most important is the customer. And in fact, in the environment altogether, the best factor is your customers. That's why oftentimes those opportunities I'm talking about are stemming from the customer, because they are the ones generating the best source of opportunities. This is also why you probably relate the fact that I highly recommend that you do interviews of people in order to reveal from the interview of people some opportunities. Going back to the project, the Valley Hive, it was sort of the same. The more you add flavors in food and beverages, the more likely the product will be successful. First opportunity. Second opportunity is people, when testing honey, if testing a honey with a flavor, they would prefer it to the same honey without flavor. That becomes an opportunity. So opportunity should come, or more often time coming from the consumers. So this time, this is for you to answer. But before I ask you to answer this, I see Derek has his hand up.
Yes, just you mentioned you're an expert on luxury brands, I know, and you research those and
yes,
have a few of your own. Mercedes is a strange product that you mentioned, because it's got a great reputation for luxury and image, but you don't see very many older Mercedes on the road. They all get crushed because they're so expensive to maintain. And so how does that fit into, I mean, maybe that makes it more exclusive, but
yes,
you got to buy a new one and, keep it for 3 years and, buy another new one. But how does that fit into because Apple doesn't have that reputation, I mean, Apple
yes.
has product, some obsolescence, but their things last a real long time, and some, so anyway, any comments on
that? Yeah, the issue with certain products is that you don't want people to be satisfied forever, because if they're satisfied forever, they don't buy. So let's take an example of Hermes bag. An Hermes bag is also a luxury, like a Mercedes. And inside Hermes bags, you have Grace, the model Kelly, and there's another model that is very iconic as well that escaped me at this second. And so those very iconic bags, they don't change, and people want them to stay the same, like a perfume from Chanel No. 5. They stay the same. People have been consuming them 50 years ago, and I would not be surprised they will consume them again in 50 years. But when you talk about a Mercedes, you have a huge amount of technology that is involved. And so people don't want to have something that is old and doesn't have the new gadgets and all that. So that's also why those products become obsolescent. And so this is why the future Mercedes will even be more faster obsolete than the Mercedes that were produced 20 years ago. Most of the time, Mercedes will produce cars for a lifespan of about 18 years. That was 30 years ago. Then it became 10 years, and probably now Mercedes has a 6 or 7 years lifespan, because of the technology and the fact that it becomes obsolescence. If you're looking at Rolex, for example, as another type of brand, you will see that the Rolex, this is not what happens, because the design and all this is not relying on technology. There's no electronics. And therefore, if you buy a Rolex today, you could probably be wearing it for the next 50 years and it would not be out of fashion, because there's no element of obsolescence into it. Does that answer your?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to get your perspective.
Yes, thank you for asking. I appreciate it. So, any time you ask me questions like this, I'm enjoy, because that way I can see where your mind is, so that I'm delighted to answer. Now, you've had the time to look at these, possibly. And so you have to start to think about which one are ideas versus which one are opportunities. Anyone who wants to answer, having had some time to look at it. So remember this, the little thing for this, sorry to move, but the rule is this. If you're telling what you're going to do, that's definitely not an opportunity. Every time you say what you are going to do, it is not an opportunity.
The answer is C.
Yes, the answer is C. It's correct. Because since the air is polluted, we should be doing X. You're saying what you're going to do. Our pollution marks are best rated, blah, blah, blah. That's like a strength. D, we could partner with blah, blah, blah. That's essentially maybe a strategy, some kind of joint venture or something like this. Diversification could be implemented, blah, blah, blah. And here again, you're talking about your strategy. So when you talk about your strategy, when you talk about your tactics, when you talk about your ideas, you are not talking about the opportunities. When you're talking about just a fact, and I believe that was Danica, and she was correct. A fact is just an opportunity. Why do I say that? It's because the number one thing for Saturday is for you to pitch me what you think are the opportunities for Andrew James. And essentially, I'm going to be not wanting you to fail. I'm only going to be there, like sort of looking at it and saying, are they telling me what they're going to do? And if you're doing this, then it's wrong. So just be very careful. You have more or less seven people in your group. Make sure that everybody is keeping their eyes open for those situations where you're telling what you're going to do, thinking that there are opportunities. Why is this very important? Because I'm doing another class, and my other class that I'm teaching is helping a company that is a consultant in the flower industry. This person is actually a broker that works between the farms and the supermarkets. So they work between a farm in Holland and Home Depot. They work between farms in South America and Ralph's and Albertsons and so forth. So they are a broker, they are like an intermediary that puts farmers, producers with distributors and retailers. And so one of my students came to me today and said, oh, I want to show you my opportunity. My opportunity is we could be selling flowers that comes from very difficult places to sell flowers, like Saudi Arabia, because they have a desert and it's difficult to sell flowers there because of the fact that it's so hot, and it's very difficult to produce it there. And so he was explaining that to me. And then I told him, I think it's a good idea to work with Saudi Arabia because they have a lot of resources in helping you as a consultant work through the network of the brokerage business that you're trying to do. So you really, the big opportunity here is that when you're a consultant, a broker, you have a hard time finding clients that can pay you reasonably. Most of the time, you have to give a discount. Most of the time, you have to do pro bono work and all this. But if you're working with people from Saudi Arabia or the Middle East, they have an economy that is booming. They have all kinds of investments that they can make. And that in itself is an opportunity. So the opportunity is to look for clients that are less likely to ask for discount. And the Middle East clients are less likely to ask for discount than the South American clients that are more likely to ask for discount, which is in fact what the client that we're serving told us is it's very hard to work with these farmers because they're struggling and we have to do a lot of compromises and so forth, which not be the case with the Middle Eastern type of farmers. And they do have farms there, and that's what the students was telling me. So then he was delighted because he thought of this, the demographic concept of opportunity by trying to find producers somewhere else than Holland, which is the most common, or Ethiopia, which is another very common, and look for the Middle East. So that was great, but he didn't see how to actually execute the opportunity. And so finding opportunity is difficult, and then thinking about how to best execute the opportunity is the next stage. What happens is, that's why it's so important to focus on the opportunities, because from one opportunity, there could be so many different ideas. Versus if you focus on an idea, you're sort of stuck on the idea that you're focusing on. So it's much better to look at the source, which is the opportunity. Now, moving into STP, we're going to try to answer this question. Before I move on, let me ask Mike this question.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of Saturday and
Yes,
presenting opportunities and not what we're going to do,
exactly.
just to get it solid, because
Yes.
I think with Andre and his music as the subject matter, it creates a new opportunity for confusion. Okay, because we're not
Okay.
talking about a car, we're not talking about a brand of bag, we're talking about music, which is very subjective.
Yes.
And we're also talking about music from a music creator who has almost zero customer base right now because
Yes.
he's doing it for fun.
Yes. Yes.
So can I just say a couple of obvious possibilities as opportunities?
Yes.
So here's one, and I'm not giving away any secrets here to other groups.
Yeah.
In 2022, hip hop and rap enjoyed 22% share of genre consumption, more than any other genre of music.
Yeah. Yes.
That's an opportunity.
Absolutely, 100%. According to Nielsen.
Right. We need to prove the
Yes.
source. Okay.
Yeah. So that's an opportunity.
Here's another one. According to the Boys and Girls Club annual report, 30% of their registered members are teenagers, and of that percentage, 25% of them are Black.
Yes.
So I'm saying that because traditionally Black consumers are people that listen to hip hop and rap. I know that that's not across the board thing.
Yeah.
I'm
but
just saying that we need to use statistics like that.
Exactly. So you're 100% correct.
Okay.
And so 100%, there's nothing I can add. And it's also very good that you use those examples, because these are the examples everybody's going to have, right?
Right.
They're like super obvious. The only problem with them is they're so generic that it doesn't lift you from the ground. That's the problem. Yeah.
Super generic. Yeah. I was just throwing out generic.
They're correct.
Because
and so
yeah.
Mike, thank you very much for doing this, because that's what I'm going to see on Saturday. I'm going to say, the worst case scenario is I tell you, okay, sorry, all your opportunities are IDs. That's the worst case scenario.
Right.
And out of the 5 teams, there may be 1 team that do this, and they are working out to understand what we're talking just right now. And there's 4 teams that are going to come, and they're not going to have IDs, because they're going to say, no, we got it. We know the difference between IDs and opportunities. But unfortunately, they're going to give me a set of opportunities, which I'm going to say generic, like it doesn't separate Andre James. And so this exercise is when I told the students today that the opportunity they are giving me for the flower industry, they just told me, oh, but why you didn't pick another project? The flower industry it's too difficult. And I've already heard from students in this class, so why did you pick Andre James? It is too difficult. The thing that students don't realize is every time we do a business project, it's always difficult. There's 1% of the time where suddenly I tell the students, you have no idea, but this is actually an easy project. You're so lucky, but you have no idea. And the students look at me and say, oh, I've never done really another one, so I don't know what you're talking about. Most of the business projects are difficult. And so my recommendation that I've said many times, but it takes a while for everyone to see it, is it's very likely that the inspiration will come from something else than the hip hop.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be someone that's like a kaleidoscope, and they look inside there, and it's not like binoculars. It's not going to be like a monocular, definitely, maybe closer to binocular, but binocular with kaleidoscope, with so many facets in there, and they are not people that have a tunnel vision and are sort of closed-minded. You got to have very open mind, full discussions, and that's also the purpose of the client cases. Next Tuesday, we have hardcore. So I forgot which group, maybe 3, will be presenting hardcore. And by presenting hardcore, that's the exercise. Someone already did the opportunity for them, like the Valley Hives. You don't have to invent anything. You just have to understand what they were trying to say, and then make it your own, and then pitch it as a sales pitch, to the audience. And what's beautiful, and I see it every time, is as we get to the the third and the fourth and the fifth presentation of the client case, then everybody suddenly just pitch the opportunities, everybody gets the idea. It becomes cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and then becomes the 100 gems, but you still have to produce the one for 100 gems because I don't have the answer. You know,
Right.
this is not a case study where I have the answer, and nobody has the answer, and it's not on artificial intelligence or Google or anywhere. It's like we all have to filter this and do the research. So that's why I trust everyone to sort of study and be critical in order to find one little element that suddenly gives a very good direction for the artist, at least for the first step, second step, third step. So
Right.
it's a great exercise, it's very realistic. And
then
yep.
one other thing, you do want an element of an interview and a pool of people that we interview to be incorporated into this presentation. Is that right?
I would absolutely love to see this, because
Okay.
that would mean that the students have understood me when I say collect primary data and don't do questionnaire, but just do interview. And you know, I know that you can do interview where you could spend weeks and hours interviewing, and it would be much better. And these are going to be very brief interview. You're going to have to sort of make guesses and sort of try to come up with intelligent things in very short time. And I know that's very difficult.
Yeah.
I also know that when you run a business, it is very rare that you have the luxury of weeks and weeks in order to make decisions. Most of the time when you run a business, people don't even do research. They just wing it. I know because I work for hundreds of small businesses all year long, and 99% of them just wing it. They absolutely do no research. The bare minimum that they do is 5 minutes on Google to just look for information. That's what most people do. The one that know what is primary research, secondary research, which is your case, they do more than this, which is they collect existing published information, and then they start asking questions to some people in order to start drilling primary data. And that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at something realistic, which is people have to collect information in order to make better decisions. And therefore, they tell me that they've collected information, where they collected it, what did they get, and how they interpret it. If you can do this, and it's very little information, at least it's the process has been executed. Has it been executed like a professor doing it? Probably not. But professors are a very different animal than the industry. The industry, most of the time, just try to get things done so they can pay their bills and keep on going, you know.
Right.
And perfection is the enemy of good most of the time in business, because you got to keep on going. So
What was that again? The what is the enemy of good?
perfection.
Perfection. Okay.
Oh yeah. Perfection is the enemy of good most of the time. There's some industry. I mean, if you work in, I don't know, airspace, satellite engineering, perfection is what you're looking for. But if you are most of the other business, perfection is the enemy of good, which means that good is enough in order to keep on going, because the matter is the essence, and the matter is timing most of the time. It's like what can be done today is better than tomorrow, and you keep on moving. I was speaking to a bunch of very big business people this weekend, and I was telling them how much do I see people writing emails that are 2 lines. And I see less and less people in the industry at a higher level writing more than 2 lines in their email. The minute there's more than 2 lines, they don't read the rest, and they get upset, or you don't get an answer. And I can see it's more and more the case. And in fact, I see the new generation being that way anyway. Even if they are not top executives, they just don't read that much. So that's also the same thing, is shorter, faster, focused, going to the essential, looking at the momentum, building the momentum, driving the momentum is very important without losing the essence, you know. And that's also, so I'm saying it's a lot of balance, but that's what you have to do. Thank you, Mike, for your questions. So how companies can improve their product for maximum competitive advantage in the marketplace. So that's what everybody wants. You know, it's people ask me, so to do good business, what do you need to do? And I tell you, to me, the #1 magic trick in business, I mean, there's many magic tricks, but the #1 magic trick is segmentation, targeting, and positioning. It's dividing customers, selecting customers. To me, that's the #1 skills. And so when I answer the fact that it's STP to people, it's very, very rare that people understand what I mean. So I did a project for a company that sells milk, and their business is almost $3 billion milk sales. And I was with my students working directly with the CEO. And when we asked the CEO, what do you think is the most important thing in business? And the CEO said STP. I was so excited because the students could hear it from someone else. And this person had a lot of credentials because he was the CEO of a $3 billion industry. And then the students were very motivated to learn more about STP because they heard from this person. So STP is what I'm going to talk briefly. I go back to when you talk about STP, you have to talk about consumer behavior because the two are connected. So you probably reviewed my video for consumer behavior, and consumer behavior is the sort of the psychological analysis of consumers in order to predict people's intention and to sort of control people's intention and so forth. This consumer behavior happens in what's called the black box. The black box is what happens when in people's mind, essentially, in people's life. We don't know what it is. We know the input, what we tell the customers. You know, we can tell the customers 2 for the price of 1 tomorrow. And so they hear 2 for the price of 1, but we don't know if that 2 for the price of 1 at that moment had any impact, or if it had to be 3 for the price of 1 in order to generate an impact. The response is we know what it is. They buy or they don't buy. And therefore that makes the whole exchange. They memorize or they don't memorize. So what is ST and P? How can you define this? So segmentation is the first step. If I had to summarize what segmentation is dividing. So if someone say, I'm doing my segmentation of the market right now. The segmentation of the market is the division of the market. You dividing consumers. Targeting is the second stage, is you are selecting customers. Why am I saying this? Is because I've been teaching this a long time, you know, and these are new words. They sound English, but what do they really mean? It's very easy to forget. So all you have to remember, is segmentation is dividing, targeting is selecting, and positioning is creating an image. Dividing, selecting, creating an image. Now, which one is the first is segmenting and targeting. Which one is harder? The hardest one is the first stage, is to divide. So what are the methods of dividing customers? So you divide customers by the same factors that are used in order to analyze customers. So you probably recognize this slide from the previous slides inside consumer behavior, which is you divide customers based on their culture, their social class, their personality, the way they think psychologically, and these 4 factors are how you can divide people. So you divide people by their social class, medium, low, high social class, by the fact that they're married, not married, by the fact that they have a job, by the fact that they have a special demographic situation, such as their age or gender, by the fact that they have a large family, a small family, by the fact that they live in a certain area, by the fact that they have high income versus low income, by the fact that they may have multiple hobbies, by the fact that they are ready to buy versus they're not ready to buy. I mean, you drive and you have a punctured tire, you're ready to buy a tire. If you're driving, you don't have a punctured tire, you don't think about buying tires for your car if you don't need it. So there's different level of readiness. By the perception, the amount of knowledge that you have, by the perception of what you think this product is worth, by the perception of what you think other people think of this product, which may have an impact on willing to buy this product. You buy it again by your subcultures. So all of this concept of division is usually, takes me a long time to explain that for most people, but I have a little trick for the Maya people, which is you are very used to the concept of division because in the music industry, you oftentimes talk in terms of genre of music genre. So there are more than 300 music genre, and those music genres are, you know, so I'm not going to say them all, but it's to show you the quantity of music genre that there are. Alternative, so you have subgenre within alternative. Blues, you have subgenres. Classical, you have subgenres. Comedy, commercial, country, you have subgenres. So like I said, there's more than 300 genres of music, and therefore you could say there's more than 300 type of consumer of this music. Because since there's a genre, there's a customer that wants this genre of music. So in the music industry is made under this division. So when you're offering music, you're offering it to a specific group of customers, and this group of customers is following this division. So if we look at this slide, is where does this fit? It fits in the subculture. The type of music that you like is a lifestyle, is a subculture, is a specific group of music. In the class right now, I'm sure there's some people that are more into rock, and some other people may be more into EDM, and some other people may be more into classical music. There's a mixture of different style of music. You may even have subgender where you actually do a blending of the different gender, and you like the blends, and you like all of these different things, which creates new gender. That's why the things evolved. Whatever you understand about the music gender is the same thing when it comes to dividing customers. Is there's many type of customers, and to understand customers, you need to divide them. So one thing that I didn't discuss is the division, which is behavioral. So the behavioral the division of customers is by the people that use it more or less. So you have people that would, wear a suit once a week, some once a year, some never, some every day. There's different occasions. And so the amount of usage consumer have is behavioral, and therefore it's very important. It could be based on your status. Is maybe you work in as a mechanic, so you'll be wearing a coverall very often, or maybe it has to do with some kind of loyalty. Maybe you belong to a club, or maybe it has to do with special occasions. Maybe you belong to a dancing club, and therefore you're wearing a dress or a specific suit in order to dance, some sort of gown, to a church or something. You're wearing a specific uniform because you belong to a specific military orchestra or something like this. So all of this behavioral has also an impact on how you consume. So now I'm going to show you something, but this is again because everyone can understand this slide, because it relates to toothpaste. It's uncommon to find people that don't use toothpaste. It exists, but most of the people use toothpaste. So I use that example saying that when you buy toothpaste, you look for different benefits. Maybe you're looking for the brightness of the teeth. Maybe you're looking for prevention of decay. Maybe you're looking for a good breath. Maybe you're looking for whatever is the benefit. Then you have different group of people that buy it. Maybe you are younger, older. Maybe you have specific medical issues, no medical issues. Maybe you're smoker, non-smoker. Maybe you're someone who is meeting a lot of people. So it's like a person that works in public, and there's a lot of people that look at you, maybe on TV or something. You're a YouTuber or whatever, so you would want to have let's say, cleaner teeth than dirtier teeth. So all of this has an impact because of the social appearances and so forth. Now, what you see is what's interesting about segmenting. Segmenting is about dividing. But what you do is, since you divide people into many, many groups, you have to think about grouping them. And that's the second stage, is therefore, it's therefore grouping them. So now I have some images in order to explain that to you. These are different body shapes, different people, men, women. They look like they have different jobs. The job of dividing is starting to look at these people and starting to find a common ground. It's like, who's wearing a hat? There's some people. Who is wearing blue? Who's wearing, who can we see their legs? Who we can see their legs? Are they women? Are they men? And so the objective that comes about segmenting is to look at the population and to see some kind of element which is a common ground between the people within the population. So that's why this is very important, because I would not be surprised. I would say there's 99% chance that at least one of the solutions for Android gems is to look at the population and find a specific ground of people that would be East people, a specific group. So, you know, I don't want to tell too much secrets, but I already saw this in sort of the draft where people were talking about the fact that he has some, you know, he comes from a small town, and there's some effects. You know, not everybody likes small town, but some people are like small town rappers, and therefore he has some specific origin that could be used in his favor, and therefore all of these details at the end makes a matter, because that's how you get people interested in someone, is because they find some element that is meaningful to them, to those specific group, not to everyone, but who is it meaningful to. So you break the people, and then you put them on some sort of map. So you have to imagine that, let's say this is 100,000 people. Each dot is 100,000 people. And for the sake of showing this, we're going to say these are cars, for example. So you have dependable cars and status cars. Cars that make you look good versus cars that get you to destination with problems. When you look at these, I don't know how many there are here, but let's say there's 40 dots. So these people are scattered all over the place. So you could say, you know what? I only want to serve one dot. So you pick one dot, and then you'll be micro-segmented. Micro-segmented is you pick one dot. Otherwise, you'll say, no, to have a good business is I need to have as many dots as possible. So therefore, I take all the dots, and I'm going to try to make a product that is good for everyone. That's also possible, but it's not recommended most of the time. So then what you do is you say, let's look to see if there's common ground. So then you look to see if there's common ground, and then you find that people actually group in 3 groups. And maybe you could say that these are social class: low social class, medium social class, high social class. So that's what you would find. Let's say the purple will be high social class, the gray will be a low social class, and then the red will be medium social class. So suddenly you're starting to have a better understanding that these are the specific people that won't have a specific social class and a specific interest for the benefit of this product. Then you could further segment them and try to see if there is something specific within social class and their benefits. And let's say you throw age. So you could say people from 20 to 40, and then for people over 40. And then you could break these two into 2 groups. What would be the next thing that you do is you could say, maybe I'll target just the orange, or maybe I'll target the orange and the green. So that's what business is about, is to look at the population and try to find some common grounds between them, and to sort of remap your consumers. Give a fresh look to your customers. See a new trend, a new movement from the customers that you can take advantage of. So what are opportunities? Opportunities are factors, changes in the environment. What's the main source of opportunities? The main source of opportunities are the customers and what the customer wants. Do the customers always know what they want? No. How do you know what people want? You know what people want. The best method is to interview them. Okay, I'm starting to make sense of all this, professor. He's saying, interview the people, because the people don't know what they want. By interviewing them, you may read between the lines and identify opportunities that tell you about changes in the environment that you can use as characteristics to resegment the market and find some new opportunities which will grow the business of whoever is your customers that you're working on, being toothpaste, being burgers, or being a rapper. It's the same thing. It's kind of crazy. And I know that sounds crazy. That's why this class is, the idea is not just to prepare you that tomorrow you can work for a rapper and only a rapper and there's nothing else you can do. It's you can apply this to anything. You want to be a musician, you can apply this. You want to sell flowers, that's what I'm doing with another class. It's exactly the same thing. Same method. Now that I've essentially finished segmenting, which is dividing, so segmenting is difficult because you will see that dividing sounds easy like this, but it becomes very difficult because there's so many characteristics to divide people that if you use too many characteristics, you end up with too specific targets. The more characteristics you had, the more you become specific, and therefore there's less and less people. Because you see, already I'm starting to have less dot within those colors. And if I keep segmenting, I'm going to have less dot to the point that I'm going to have one dot at the end. One dot is a strategy. It's called, as you will see in just a few seconds, differentiated, and it's great, but it's also, and it may be good for 100 gems. So I don't know if 100 gems should be a lot for a very small group. And maybe that's actually something interesting to look at. Is there such a thing as a very confidential wrap for a small group of people? Or should wrap always be universal? Or should there be a wrap for women versus should there be a wrap for older people? Old school wrap versus new style wrap? I don't know the answer to this. Yes, Mike.
I think what you're pointing out right now is if you want to build an audience, don't be generic.
Don't be generic.
Right?
Most of the time. So
okay.
This actually is very, very important. And I'm going to jump to this just right now. And let me show this before we finish and at the same time answer your question. So I've already alluded to this just a few seconds ago where I said, when you therefore target, you have three targeting methods. The first method is called undifferentiated. And undifferentiated means that you target everybody. You are being generic and universal. The second method is you are concentrated, which means that you identify maybe, I don't know, 10 targets. Like here, how many targets do we have? We have 6. 6 colors, 6 targets. Undifferentiated would be saying, you know what? We do all of this. We segment and segment and segment. And at the end, we say, you know what? Who cares? We're going to make one car for everybody. We're going to make one wrapper for everybody. So that's undifferentiated. Concentrated is saying, we have 6 different colors. And concentrated, I'm going to pick 2. I'm going to pick the light green and the red. And I'm going to make a product for those 2 groups. The argument behind concentrated is that it's much better to be specific than to be generic. But the opposite of that, it's the last one, the one at the bottom, is differentiated. So if you're differentiated, you're very specific to a very specific group. Differentiated is the most expensive because you are covering one target with one product. So you would say, you know what? This is not for an artist to do that. This is for a record label to do that. They have wrap 3 artists because they identify 3 targets. So they're going to have 3 wrappers for 3 of the specific targets. And differentiated is also the best one for small business. So that's the one I want to finish on. Of all of these, that's why oftentimes students ask me, I have a small business, or I'm a young artist and I'm starting, or I'm just starting, I'm like 100 gems. Which one of these is the best one? The rule of thumb is that the best one is differentiated targeting strategy. Why is this? Because when you are differentiated, you're going to put all your resources on one specific group. If you're a starting business, normally you don't have a huge amount of resources. You're getting started, and therefore you're going to have a hard time trying to convince many people at the same time. You're going to have to spend more money on advertising, marketing, selling, production, and all of this. So it is much easier to say, here's the target. It's very much smaller, more defined, and I will be doing everything I can to satisfy them. Because remember, marketing is about satisfaction. Satisfying one person is much easier than satisfying multiple people. So it's a little bit like a family-owned restaurant versus a buffet. A buffet is a concentrated dinner strategy. People go to the buffet. It's very difficult that they won't find anything in the buffet because there's going to be something for pretty much everyone, but there will be different products for different customers and different group of customers. The family-owned restaurants is going to be, most of the time, it's going to be very specific. They're going to have fewer dishes, but all the dishes are going to be extremely good. And the people, when they go there, they recognize those dishes and they always go for those dishes, and they have a reputation on those dishes. And that's how they build the reputation of the restaurants and the support of the customers. Does that make sense? Any question on this? So normally, at least that's the first milestone. You could say in 5 years, 10 years, we would like 100 gems to be more universal. You know, like yeah, like maybe like Pitbull or something more, or Drake or something more universal. But when the artist starts, they're gonna have to be very focused on who do they want to satisfy the most. And you could even say that you could have music that goes for a specific target, and as you grow, music that go to still the same target plus another additional target where you have different music for different targets. And then you become bigger, as a third milestone is you become more concentrated, which means that you're starting to be more generic. But I also think there's a danger. Once you start becoming too generic, maybe this is also when you start losing your artistry and the value of the music that you're offering, because you're becoming nothing too special anymore. And therefore, that's because there's an element of art in music that you don't want to become too generic. Otherwise, that you lose this. It becomes mass produced, and if it's mass produced, in the long run, it's not going to be sustainable, I don't think. So you probably work between differentiated and concentrated, and you just play between these two. But at the beginning, having this differentiated targeting strategy, I think, is the most recommended. But you know, a lot of the business recommendation are not 100%. A lot of the business recommendation are 90%. You know, up to 90%, because it's not a perfect science. So there's not like one rule that applies for everything. Sometimes it's 95, sometimes it's 89, and I think the one I'm giving you is probably 90% of the time. Differentiated is much better for a young starting artist. But there may be some specific situation where that would not be recommended. And that's why you have to ask the customers. That's why you have to do your PEST, political, environmental, social, and technological, and the micro environment, and look for opportunities. So it's doing research is a wide journey. You have to stay open-minded. And that's why having 7 people, at least 7 people in your group, makes it easier, because you break all of this analysis by looking at a wider net that's going to try to see. And then another thing that's very important is to be respectful to one another and to be good at listening to the members, because there's sometimes people that have very good ideas, but they don't have the best skill to express it. But whatever they want to say is very meaningful, and it's important to be a good listener to sort of understand what everybody's trying to express. Hopefully you have members that want to work. It happens sometimes there's some members, they don't pull their weight. As long as everybody pulls their weight and everybody is respectful and there's a real collegiality, you would be amazed that this is how great projects are made, is by this collegiality. It is very important. So do you have any questions?
I have a question, Professor.
Yes.
This is DCAT.
Hi, DCAT.
On the marketing mix, that was on our quiz. Had we covered this already?
Yes. So what I did is I explained what's the marketing mix. Because marketing is 2 things. 1 is satisfaction, and 2, it's the marketing mix.
Okay, so we kind of knew what it was, but like marketing mix,
it's the 4 Ps.
Actual, huh?
It's the 4 Ps.
It is the 4 Ps. Okay.
Yeah. Marketing mix or the 4 Ps or satisfaction is sort of the same thing, all of this. But we haven't covered the 4 Ps yet, because that's what's coming next week. I'm going to do the P of product, the P of price, the P of promotion, and the P of place of distribution. So then we're going to go in depth on what they are. But at that time, all you need to know is that marketing is the 4 Ps, is the marketing mix.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions? So what you should do is sort of inspire yourself from the Valley Hive, create your own PowerPoint slides, talk about the problem, the objectives, the opportunities. You know, where is he now, where he should go, what you see as the milestones, and then start talking about the IDs at the end, because the ID stems from the opportunity that you have identified. And if you can relate like this table, if you can relate the opportunity and the IDs, then it's awesome. And this is what you will be asked to do after 1 week in the next class. What you're doing here in 8 weeks, in the next class, you will be asked for you to do it after 10 days, because we will assume that you know this exercise. Because that's the 101 of business, is think in terms of opportunities. But here I want to tell you something, is give me 1 more minute, is you know, the chicken and the egg, there's the same thing here. Is it's okay, but you don't tell me that. It's okay to think in terms of IDs and then look for the opportunities to justify your IDs. Don't tell me that that's what you did. But if that's what you do, that's okay. Do people do that all the time? I think 95% of the time, that's what people do, because it's easier to think in terms of IDs than to think in terms of opportunities. But what happens is you have to complete the circle. If you think of some ID and everybody says, oh, that sounds really good, let's see if the opportunity exists. Then you find the opportunity. Then you can do it. It's like someone says, oh, why don't we create a university in the San Fernando Valley? Oh, why not? And then someone says, yeah, but is there enough people? Well, look, let's look if there's enough people. Then they look to if there's enough people, and then they come back and they don't say it that way. They say, based on our research on the San Fernando area, there is enough people to do the fact that we need to have a university. So you present it as a result, we found the opportunity, and from this opportunity, this is what we need to do. That's how you present it, because it doesn't look like you were trying to prove your ID. The worst thing when you speak to an investor is you say, I have an ID, and because it's my ID and I'm so good, I'm such a good person, that I had to look for the opportunity that would support my ID, so that way I could convince you to give me some money. The investors are going to go, do I trust your opportunity? I mean, you look like how much are you constructing this opportunity? So people don't want opportunities constructed in order to support someone's smart ID. They want people that are just focused on opportunity. So therefore, there's no bias. It's all about, let's make some money. Let's be successful. What is it that people want? What is it the problem that they have? That's what they want. Okay, that's the opportunity. Okay, I'm going to find the way of solving their problem by doing X, Y, and Z. So it comes after. It's a much more superior way of presenting a business proposal by going from the opportunity to the ID versus the ID to the opportunity, because otherwise it looks like you're trying to justify your IDs by searching for opportunities. So in the case that you found the IDs before the opportunity, don't tell me. That's all I'm saying.
But this slide has the ideas on the
Yes.
left and the opportunities on the right. So, but when we do the PowerPoint,
yes,
problems,
exactly.
objectives, opportunities, then the idea.
Exactly. So thank you for saying that.
Okay.
Because there's one way to teach it, and then one way to
do it.
For real business. So that was for me to teach. Because when I asked this, oftentimes I ask this and I ask the student to give me the answer, and I wait. Almost never they come up with the opportunity, versus almost always they come up with the IDs. So that's why I put the IDs first, because I know universally almost everybody's going to figure out the ID. But I also know, so that's why I don't go I go this way, because that's learning. But when you present it in real life, so you got it. So don't think, I don't want you to think that I was confused. It's because it's different tools for different purpose. And if I confuse you, I'm sorry, but it's because it's different purpose. So you were, at least Mike was not confused, he got it. So yeah, so you could almost do problem, opportunity, objective, ID. Yeah, perfect. All right. If you have no more questions, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for staying a few minutes extra.
All right. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great
See you
night.
again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.